I'm Bastien Guerry. I'm head of partnerships at Software Heritage. And it's my great pleasure to moderate this discussion on funding free software and digital commons and building the infrastructure to secure our digital future. So this panel includes leaders from the German Sovereign Tech Agency, the French Interministerial Digital Directorate, the European Commission DG Connect, and the Zuckerberg and Bio Hub initiatives. So without further ado, let's welcome Stéphanie Schaer, Interministerial Directorate of Digital Affairs in France, responsible for steering the French state digital strategy. Thank you. Also welcome Dario Taraborelli, Science Program Officer at the Zuckerberg Initiative and BioHub, where he oversees funding programs in open science and open source. Thank you, Dario. And Adriana, Groh, and Thibaut Kleiner should be remotely, not yet. So Adriana is here. So we welcome Adriana, CEO of the Sovereign Tech Agency in Germany, which leads efforts to invest in critical open source digital infrastructure in the public interest. Welcome, Adriana. Thank you. And we also have Thibaut Kleiner, Deputy Director General at the European Commission's DG Connect, where he leads the advancement of European digital sovereignty. So thank you, Thibaut. Before we start, and because I was asked to take more time to wait for people to join us remotely, just a short story. So 20 years ago, I had a breakup. I was heartbroken, so I went to the psychoanalyst. Because I had no money, I went to the Emacs psychoanalyst. I was still a student. And then I found a bug in Emacs, then I proposed a fix, and then my life was doomed. I became an Emacs maintainer. I fell in love with computer science and informatics, and I started to become a free software maintainer. So that was good. Life was meaningful again, and everything was good. But 11 years ago, I had a breakup. My heart was broken. I was burned out. I couldn't be a maintainer anymore. So because spending all my free time, helping others was too much for me. I had this maintainer fatigue that everyone has been speaking about, and that was just 1 year before Nadia Eghbal published Roads and Bridges, which brought attention to the problem of open source maintainer worldwide. And that was a key moment, 2016. Fast forward to this year, 2026, and recently I had a breakup. But the good news is that this maintainer problem is not a problem just for me and just for maintainers. It's a problem for everyone. It's a problem for the French state. It's a problem for foundations. It's a problem for, it's a concerning problem for everyone. And we have clever minds at work trying to fix it. So thanks again for participating to this panel. And a quick show of hands. Who is using free software and knows he's using free software? Nearly everyone, okay. Who gives at least 100 euros per year to some free software out there? Okay, a strong, more than 5 years ago. Who would be okay to give 100 euros to Software Heritage each year? That's a trap. Okay, thank you. So let's start this discussion. The first question is, I'd like to know each of you a bit more and understand why free software and digital commons are important to what you do in general. And perhaps we'll start with you, Stéphanie, and then Adriana, if you're ready online, and continue with Dario and Thibaut. Thank you.
Thank you, Bastien. It's a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you, Roberto, for the invitation. In fact, I was invited also 3 years ago, and Dinium is just across the road. And so really happy to see also that we are more than 3 years ago, bigger place, bigger room. That means that also the importance of open source software for all of us. In fact, France we are on open source, open data since a lot of time in the subject from the public sector side. And we have some laws about that. We are also leader in open data. And we continue to be leader in open data for the 5th year now in Europe. We are on the first place. We have also framework to promote open source. But 3 years ago, what I presented to you was a change also in strategy with reinforcement of the place of open source software, as not only the fact that we publish the code we produce as written in our framework, but on the fact that we use open source for critical IT system, and we want to contribute to them. So it's completely linked to the point you put on the agenda for this roundtable. And it's a different thing to explain a new strategy and to see now where we are. And I'm happy to share with you that after putting this strategy at international level, we have results. We have results. So it's not only a dream to have open source software as part of the solution for autonomy, to have solution for citizens, for the civil servants, but we really have results that is a proof that it's possible. So let's give a few examples. We have Chat, for example. It's a secured instant messaging. It's used today by more than 400,000 people every day. So it's really a reality. 3 years ago, it was maybe 100 people using it, which is quite a lot, but very far away from the civil servants that could use such an instant messaging. And we have on this product, in fact, 700,000 people that are inscribed. That means that when you look for someone working for the public action in France, you will find it on CHAP, even if it's not, he doesn't use it every day. When you need to use it, it's installed, and so that make it really a very useful product for crisis management, for communication between us to improve collaboration also of civil servants, and so it's a proof that it works. Another thing is video conference. We use today video conference with panelists that are in Germany and in Brussels. Visio is everywhere at all time in our work, and on the same, we choose to use LiveKit, open source software, and have our own solution in France for all the ministers. It was announced this Monday by the Minister for State Reform, and it was done in CNRS, so big institution in France for research, because they need to have more autonomy also on the exchange in video conference. And we are already for 40,000 people on it, with a product that was launched only 1 year ago, but based on open source. We have connection with our German colleague on it, and we are confident with the fact that we can improve it to probably until 1 million civil servants that use video conference, and it's completely part of the strategy. So the big change is that we have this strategy, and now we are really in action, and this action show results. So that's why for us, for France, open source is such important, because it's part of our strategy for autonomy, but we will come back to this point later, I think, Bastien.
Okay, yeah, thank you. So DNIM is contributing with code and also supporting foundations like the Matrix Foundation and also spreading open source for digital sovereignty for
Yes, we will come back to that
Okay.
one.
Adriana, if you hear me, hello. Can you tell us more about what the Sovereign Tech Agency is doing and how do you support open source and maintainers in general?
Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear and see me rather clearly. Thank you for having me. Perfect.
Yes.
Rather would be in the room with you, but this is better than nothing. So yes, I'm happy to give a bit more context. I believe it's very complementary to what Stéphanie just said, with in France, DNIM contributing and producing and using themselves open source software, digital commons, very good alternative products. In Germany, the Sovereign Tech Agency was established underneath the German government as a new instrument we can use to fulfill a public service, as we frame it, which first of all means we need to acknowledge and understand that we have a shared, a global digital common with the open source ecosystem. We focus on the infrastructure layer, as we call it. So very simplified, simply put, software that developers need to develop software. So the products that we use, the services that we have, all rely on this shared ecosystem. And open source has proven itself to be the most successful software development strategy. It's innovative. It's agile, if you want to call it like that. It's more sustainable. It has proven itself, and it's a massive asset we as societies have. So we want to invest back into that. So that's what we do at the Sovereign Tech Agency. We have developed different instruments that address the production logic and the needs of the open source software communities, the people who maintain and build the code, to use public procurement in a new way, to target the maintenance of open source software that is already existing out there, being used by millions and millions of people, not just in government and the public services, but also in industry, also in research, academia, but also just by civil society groups. So, Bastien, you mentioned roads and bridges. We treat that a little bit as our onboarding document for new team members at the Sovereign Tech Agency, saying, well, in the 21st century, roads and bridges, the infrastructure we as a society rely on isn't just made out of concrete. It's not just in the physical world. It's also software as an invisible layer. And acknowledging this is the first step, then treating it as such, as something that we need to cherish and maintain in our public interest as the foundation for security, innovation, competition, but also democracy, is the second step. And that's what we're doing at the Sovereign Tech Agency.
Thank you, Adriana. And so, Dario, I believe you have a special area of interest for science in general. Can you tell us more about what you do?
I do, yes. Hi, everyone, and thanks for having me. My name is Dario. I'm Science Program Officer at the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative, now called BioHub, in the United States. And yes, I want to bring the perspective of a science funder in that space. I don't think we need to explain to this audience that science, software aids science decades ago, right? We know that all science today, when it's computational in nature, runs on open source software. You cannot think of any major breakthrough in science of the last decade or so that hasn't been critically enabled by open source for science. And yet, if you're trying to find funding for a scientific open source software, it is really hard to be able to fund software through traditional science funding mechanisms. And the reason is that as a scientific funding community, we value novelty. We don't necessarily think about the role that resources that enable scientific collaboration at scale, how they should be a critical part of our funding strategy. So 6 years ago, I had the privilege of working for an organization that thought, okay, we're a funding organization, we can do something about it. How can we think about designing a program that is not designed for maintainers as an afterthought after research, but designing a program that is tailored to the needs of maintainers of scientific open source software. So we launched back then a philanthropic program that was really trying to address these bottlenecks. And over time, so running for 6 years, that program became the largest investment in that space, scientific open source software, deploying $58 million for many of the household Python and R and Julia libraries that probably, if you're a scientist, you've heard of. But also we managed to pilot for the first time a multi-funder collaboration. So we worked with the Wellcome Trust, Kavli Foundation, the Research Software Alliance, to try and see how we could pull resources into that space. Later this year, we'll be announcing a new initiative that is actually trying to solve that problem, how to create like a global centralized hub that enables funders to come together across the private, the public sector, the industry sector, to try and funnel funding into the scientific open source foundations of our communities. And it was really good to hear from Omar today this question of like we need to have pooled collaborative mechanisms of how for investing into open source, specifically for science. So that's what we're trying to do, and I should come and find me after this if you want to learn more about this initiative.
Thank you, Dario. Thibaut, if you can hear us, so you are DigiConnect. How is the Commission supporting the open source and digital commons ecosystem in general? Is it supporting it just for public administrations in Europe or for every citizen and every company?
So thanks a lot, Bastien and colleagues for inviting me. I wish also I would be with you today in Paris, but we have like the Open Source Week right now in Brussels, so quite a lot of activities where we are also participating at European Commission. I also should correct that you just promoted me to a Deputy Director General. I'm only the Director for Future Networks in DigiConnect, so thanks for the promotion, but maybe my title should be just corrected. This being said, I'm indeed in charge of software in the European Commission. So in that role, I think that we've been supporting software in general, but especially open source in the past years. We've had a program called Next Generation Internet that we launched in 2016, I believe, so some 10 years ago, with the objective of supporting open source communities through agile funding. This has been really an important area where we tried precisely to help the developers to organize their activities. And recently we've focused our policy on making sure that it's not just about the communities for the sake of it, but really we are trying through our new development to make sure that we go from just code to something that comes closer to products and solutions. And that's what we are doing through our project we call the Open Internet Stack. So every year we have been spending more or less 25 million euros in the communities now in this Open Internet Stack, which is aiming currently at building blocks, so essential elements in the software landscape that we are supporting towards Web 4.0, towards virtual worlds in particular, but also towards specific areas and vertical sectors. The other thing I'm doing with my teams is that we are investing, we are procuring actually open source software. We have the project called Simple. It is a middleware for data spaces. It's also a kind of a middleware platform. And tomorrow we have in Brussels the Simple Summit, where we are showcasing actually the results from this. And more generally at this very moment, we are working to prepare an open source strategy, actually to try and change the perception of open source, to make it clear as well that we have assets in Europe, but that we are not actually making the best of these assets. Just two examples of this. Altogether, I calculated that in the past 6 years, altogether at the EU level, we probably spend something like 800 million in activities that support open source. But this was not organized in a way that is focused and structured. So to a large extent, it resulted in codes being produced, but not really curated, not really maintained, not really leading to as tangible results as it could. So that's something we want to change. We want to make sure that our funding is better organized, that really we don't only support communities for a project, but we support really an ecosystem that nurtures and values open source as a source of excellence and as a source also of competitiveness. Second element we are working on is really making sure that we can improve the governance of the open source landscape. I mean, very often what we see is that foundations are not governed very much with Europe at heart. They are more or less, I think that something like 80% of the software overall is open source, but most of the profits are made by either very large companies that put a proprietary layer on top, or because they are simply reusing open source that has been produced by volunteers sometimes without always them getting the benefits of their efforts. So we want to have an impact on this. We want to make sure that this is also well recognized, and that at the end we create also incentives in the system so that we maintain the communities in a way that will also scale them up and give also sustainability, because very often what we identified is that people are reticent to use open source because they don't know who is maintaining it, how long it will be available, what kind of cybersecurity will be put on top. So that's something that we want to work on. And at the end, I think that also working with member states is something that we are very much supporting. I think that Stéphanie was mentioning also the EDIC, the Digital Commons EDIC. I think that she herself and her team and France overall has been really a driving force in making the Digital Commons an agenda for sovereignty. And I think that's something we are really taking on board at the European level. And I'm very, very happy that Adriana is here, because I think the efforts of Germany also as part of this EDIC is quite remarkable. So I think we have really a great opportunity also with the Netherlands, Italy, Slovenia now joining this, and I hope many, many more. So we are at an interesting point where I think we can make out of open source not only an interesting object for research, for efforts, but really a vibrant input in our renewed competitiveness. So that's a little bit my angle to it, and I'm really looking forward to further exchange and hopefully contributions to our still ongoing public consultation on our strategy for open source.
Thank you, Thibaut. Yes, there is this ongoing consultation. I urge you to check that and to contribute. So the support from Europe is very multidimensional. It's about governance. It's about connecting projects with each other, which is one aspect that I would like to ask further questions about, and maybe with starting with you, Adriana, because I imagine that you create links within this maintainers community that you are supporting, which is also one aspect of the NGI program, which is more than 1,000 open source projects being funded for the last 5 years. So is it one aspect that is important to you to try to make connections within these maintainers, not just at the technical level, but also, I would say, even at the human level, to share tips on how to become more sustainable, how to grow their community of users, of contributors? Is it one aspect that the Sovereignty Agency is concerned with?
So a bit of a multi-dimensional answer to that, maybe, because technically speaking, we are procurers, right? We do public procurement. There's no special law for us. It's the instrument that governments use to spend money in the public interest, and that is the instrument that we use at the Sovereign Tech Agency. However, I think it's very important to highlight that we understand the production logics of software development, especially in open source communities. And that is the magic ingredient, right? Because you need to understand your market in order to do procurement in a way that you're using, on the one hand side, your money, taxpayers' money, in a sensible, strategic and sustainable way that has an impact, but also, and this is the point where our theory of change also applies, in a way that we're not just fixing symptoms. So yes, it is very important to do work that is long overdue, to give money to the people who do a job that should have been paid for since a long time. Because yes, this is often volunteer work, but actually it's fulfilling, in our definition, a new kind of public service. And we've seen again and again cases where software broke because it wasn't maintained or there weren't enough resources behind it. And the impacts of that were felt globally and massively in all kinds of services and products, put people sometimes, their lives at risk because there's a chain reaction, or at least their data or their everyday life was disrupted. So we cannot just always react to that by putting band-aids on a broken leg. So what we're also trying to do is use the mechanisms we have and use the investments, the money that we have, in a way to gradually, carefully, and slowly change a system that has done so much good, that has so many benefits, but it also has weak spots, right? We all heard about volunteer burnout, of the thankless job of maintaining software because it needs to run smoothly. If everything works well, nobody gives you credit. Only when it breaks, everyone is pointing at you saying, why you need to fix this, you need to fix it fast. And I don't care if you have other commitments, please do it now. So these kind of like social and like structural and historically grown, let's call them weak spots in the ecosystem, we want to address. And that is nothing that you do from now to then. That is something for which you need a long-term plan. And this is also the reason why we're at the Sovereign Tech Agency, not just running the Sovereign Tech Fund, which is one and our main program. We also established a fellowship program, right? Bring in more talent, support senior developers to share their expertise with junior developers, give people a different setup where they can do their work, like change the work environment. We're also doing, I always call it a bug bounty plus, so a program that is focused on resilience, audits, training maintainers in security best practices, sharing knowledge, hardening software. And we're now also looking into standards, because that is, that goes hand in hand. So what I'm trying to say here is that we're building up one instrument after another, testing it, adjusting it, and interlocking our different approaches to not just do spending of money from A to B, and in the long term not doing any lasting changes, but understanding the communities, working with them, really addressing their pain points. So that would be my answer to your question.
Thank you very much, Adriana. Dario, what's the community aspect of the funding you do within science field?
We keep thinking about open source as mostly volunteer driven, and people can join and contribute to it. The reality is that, as we talked about it extensively, is that even volunteer driven work generates a burden for especially maintainers of critical software that needs to be funded. So when we're discussing the question, the preparation for the panel, like what are the things that we can do to better support these communities? There are things that relate to training. I really like Adriana, what you said about like capacity building for maintainers, training fellowships, creating opportunities for maintainers to get together and work jointly as opposed to in silos. But at the end of the day, funding remains a critical bottleneck. So, and the example I like to cite is that even managing a fast-growing backlog of volunteer contributions or bug requests or feature requests start requiring, in most cases, for established software, funding a role for a community manager. Without the community manager whose job is to do this, many of these projects collapse. They don't have the capacity to live up to the expectations from the community. You mentioned that example yourself. So I think that there are many types of intervention we can make to actually help break silos within the community, support individual maintainers. At the end of the day, my take, especially coming from the science aspect of open source, is that even the community aspects at the end of the day need fundamentally funding. And I will maybe close with one number that I still find staggering. The total public funding into research is something to like 1 trillion per year. And so if we could invest like 1% of that figure into sustaining critical scientific open source software for science, right? That would be $10 billion a year. Do we think that collectively, publicly, public agencies and philanthropies and industry, collectively we're investing $10 billion into the critical foundation of open source foundations? And we're not, right? And so to me, ultimately the question is, how do we get to the point where we can raise that capital is absolutely needed to make these communities thrive and not carry the burden of the entire scientific enterprise?
Thank you. Very clear. I wish we had 10 million. Stéphanie, Thibaut mentioned the EDIC, which stands for European Digital Infrastructure Consortium. So what is this? What is DINUM doing there with France and other countries? And is it a way to bring digital commons and open source maintainers together to form a community and to be funded together?
Thanks, Bastien. I can tell some words about this EDIC. EDIC, European Digital Infrastructure Consortium, dedicated to digital commons, because there are several EDIC, and I will speak of this one. Henri Verdier knows it very well because he worked a lot to build this EDIC, and we had a nice meeting in last December in The Hague to launch this new consortium. Thibaut spoke about the founding members. We are 5 now: France, Germany, the Netherlands, Italy, and Luxembourg. And we have observers, countries that want to contribute and will probably become full members next year. And we have Slovenia, we have Poland, we have Denmark, we have Hungary. So several countries that are coming in this new work together. This EDIC on digital commons, we wanted to create it to focus our investment on digital commons, but also in a purpose. And the goal is to regain digital power, to have together the power to regain autonomy on digital in Europe, and have the possibility to skip from our dependencies. That's exactly what I had the chance to explain in a very high-level summit on digital sovereignty in Berlin. It was mid-November, where we had the chance to have a roundtable on digital commons. Maybe it would not have happened a few years ago to have digital commons put at this level as a solution for digital sovereignty. But it's the case, and it's clear that for France, for Germany, we put a lot of energy building this EDIC because we need this consortium and to work together to have enough power, enough investment, to have those open source solutions that we let us have solutions for our strategic autonomy and in the full range of the stacks of IT. So I spoke about digital workplaces with Visio and CHAP, and we work with Germany on docs, for example, an editor to collaborate between people. But the same scheme could adapt to AI, cybersecurity, data. We have a lot of perspective with this EDIC. So the EDIC will help us to put our energy, our funding together on the same goal. It's not only a question of money to succeed, but also a question of how we do that, the method. And that's why we want with the EDIC to have really concrete challenges to see the metrics, how we change the things, how we have more active users for new instant messaging, for video conference, for example. And that's how, so together with the member states that are on board, we want to go forward with this new tool. And we are very happy also to have the support of the European Commission. So we have a lot of exchange with DG Connect, the team of Thibaut Kleiner, that help us also with the funding. And we want, together with the European Commission, to have, thanks to the EDIC, very active tool to have more and more European solution based on open source software to be independent from monopolistic IT solutions. So it's very important for the French strategy, for our sovereignty, and we are very happy also of all the work done already with all the funding members. And with Adriana, is part also of the team, and we have many exchange. We were all of us in the Hague mid-December.
Thank you. So we have time for a last round of question, and my question would be, 25 years ago, we had this huge fight between free software and open source. It was not just words, but the idea was that this ecosystem is driven either by altruistic reasons or by just scratching my own itch and just doing things for myself and sharing it with my colleagues and then publicly, but focusing on my own needs. And today we have words like sovereignty that kind of stand in the middle. It looks like it's for your sovereignty, so for selfish reasons for countries, but at the same time it seems compatible with defending also the sovereignty of other countries. To put it bluntly, why should taxpayers' money from European citizens pay for open source that is useful for any other country? How do you tackle this dilemma? Is it a dilemma, or is it just a wrongly put problem and a fake problem? So maybe we'll start with you, Adriana, because you're funding project from the whole world, right? So is it a dilemma for you, or is it just a non-starter?
No, we get that question a lot, of course, and it's one of the things I like most about my area of work, because you either do it well and then everyone profits, or you do it badly and then nobody profits. That's the logic behind it. And we have many of such topics, right? We see often the problem, some call it tragedy of commons, or the pointing fingers. Well, why should I do it when you're not doing it? But when I do it, you also profit. So I don't do it, and nobody does it, and we all suffer. And that's not how I believe we need to act in the future. I think we need to turn this whole logic around. And you could mention other areas, you know, advancements in medicine, that they benefit all of us. If we solve the problem with an illness that does only exist in one region of the world, we will feel it in other regions of the world. If we improve air quality or water quality in our communities, it does have effects on other people. So the solution can never be that we all say, let's not do it. The solution is that we all say, let's do it. And that is the beauty of an open source ecosystem. If we all do it, if some of us start doing it, it's going to have an impact. Small impact, but one that can grow the more people join. And it's, I think, the saying of the tide lifts all boats. You can call it whatever you want to call it, but I can pin down the benefits for a French administration, an Italian research institution, a German company, or also an American citizen to the quality of open source software. And that others benefit from it shouldn't blindside us for what are our strategic goals with this. If I have a clear strategic goal, and I think the European Union has it, I think the member states have it, then we need to act accordingly. We need to invest, because we can say, this is the goal, this is the strategy, and that's the required action. And understanding that the open source ecosystem, that the whole logic of how we produce software in an open nature, in one that allows for many benefits, for speed, for innovation, for more security, for more participation, understanding these qualities and investing in them will have so many beneficial effects for all areas of life that saying others benefit from it too is really not a reason not to do it. So yeah, that's how we deal with this issue.
Thank you, Adriana. And to give back to Cesar, we should say that Henry Verdier, as an ambassador for digital affairs in France, famously put this digital commons at the center of a new strategy that would be not big tech oriented as in the US or big state oriented as in China, but would be kind of a third way to defend digital sovereignty. First way, okay, the first way, not the third way, but anyway, this is the way, right? Thibaut, what would you say that this is also the reasoning behind the European Commission tackling this question of digital sovereignty through supporting open source software and digital commons in general?
Certainly, I think that especially today, our efforts in terms of supporting open source is linked to digital sovereignty. But I would like also to avoid maybe some misunderstanding between us, because open source very rarely is readily usable. Most of the time, you need to tweak it, you need to adjust it to specific uses and usages. Even some of the projects that are developed now in the EDIC, you have national versions of the same codes and building blocks. So and that's why open source is not for free as well. You need people to maintain it, you need people to improve, to eliminate some bugs, you need people to adjust it to the specific usages of sectors or of usages and so on. And that's why it's also, as such, a target of activity. If you want to have a good code, you need to curate it. And I think that the role of the Software Heritage Foundation is very important here. I mean, we need also to remember what code was produced years ago. I mean, I remember also having interesting conversations with people who were explaining to me that sometimes, software vendors are just pretending that the old code is not good enough, whereas in reality they are very, very useful building blocks in old softwares that you can recycle, reuse, maintain over time, and they are very cheap and very, very efficient. So yes, today I think our strategy is geared towards sovereignty, because we think that open source is a shortcut to addressing dependencies. It's a way to leapfrog somehow, and to build and to pick from everywhere. We find, some solutions to avoid that we just have to buy from, third countries, from in areas from, video conferencing to email, to cloud or AI, or even, the software aspects of hardware. So that's really very much what we are focusing on right now. But I think there is a broader dimension to curating and supporting open source more as a public good. And what I want to say also is that we see open source as part of our what we call our tech offer. From Europe, we think that actually we are very well placed to work with partners internationally to use open source as a way to develop our own sovereignty in Europe, but also to bridge with other countries that have the same willingness to be more independent, to have their own resources, to grow their own ecosystems locally instead of buying black boxes from the US or China. And that's really a vivid conversation we start having. Myself, I was in touch, for instance, with the minister in Nigeria, who is trying to support local open source communities in the field of even AI, but also for applications in the agriculture area. There is an effort around ODET, so the Office of the Tech Envoy in the United Nations, to also create some resources there that can be shared internationally, because very often, you can take open source and build around it solutions for developing countries. That's what we want to do from Europe with our tech offer. We have fantastic opportunities now with the European Digital Identity Wallet. It is open source. We have the simple projects I'm in charge of, that is really a tool to exchange data, very, very important for any country that tries to develop data space and AI. And we have all the efforts of the EDIC and beyond, and all the results of our, digital support in, what we have done in the past 10 years, where we have actually building blocks and ready-made products that can be used internationally. So I think this is not just a European agenda, it's a global agenda, and it's something where we can also actually benefit from developers, from coders that come from outside Europe.
Thank you very much, Thibaut. And then quickly, it's less than 1 minute for Dario, because Dario, you're the only one representative of a private initiative funding open source project out there. How do you convince all the private initiatives to get there and to get there for everyone?
Yeah, for science, it's actually a pretty trivial question, because science is global in nature, it doesn't follow geographical boundaries, and yet there are initiatives that need to cater to the needs of developing software for scientific problems that are particularly relevant for a given community. But we don't use, the French or the German or the Egyptian version of a tool for data visualization. The entire planet builds on the same software foundations. And so in science, I think it's really no-brainer to try and think about what these examples are to provide a foundation for global large-scale collaboration. We have examples of a French-born project, Scikit-learn, that are now becoming the de facto standard globally for specific types of scientific needs.
Stéphanie, last word.
So I will just add that we really do not oppose sovereignty with digital commons. Instead, it's combined, as Thibaut said. This is really the perspective of this new edict. And to have success in this direction, we need also competencies to make those choices, to have the capacity to focus our investment on the good challenges and the good open source software that will enable us to have the solution. And why digital commons are so important is that we mutualize investment capacities to bring the best solution, and we can do it between public sectors from different countries in Europe, but largely also. We had Hack Days last summer, and we have 17 countries, also Brazil, Canada, so really more than Europe. We share the same perspective, and also between public and private. In those Hack Days, we had a lot of companies who work also on open source software. And for example, this video conference is taken on board also by companies that will make some business for other companies with some tools that are not monopolistic tools. And that's how, with so much collaboration, thanks to the foundation of open source software, the nature of open source software and digital commons, we really can have success. So this is really the strategy we continue, and with the results that we have and that push us to go forward.
Thank you very much. And Just one last word, because we announced this morning, but I want to restate it in front of the whole attendees of the symposium, that we have this nice collaboration between Software Heritage and the Sovereign Tech Agency. We're very happy with this, and this collaboration is all about providing facilities to open source maintainers that the Sovereign Tech Agency is funding and supporting, providing them with special facilities when it comes to archiving their software. So, and we will give you an update next year. So thank you again, Adriana, Thibaut, Dario, and Stéphanie. Round of applause for you, and floor is yours.